we don't want to compare to other people, how their house looks, how their house functions, where they put their things. Really looking at your needs for your home and what this space is for you. Does that really fit where we're at right now?
Welcome to Reframe and Reclaim. We are Courtney Huckabee, a psychotherapist,
and Jen Harris, an interior designer
who have teamed up to reflect,
challenge,
and reframe your mindset in relationship with your personal belongings.
Join us as we discuss and declutter all of the stuff that keeps us stuck.
Learn to intentionally create environments with improved function and design that cultivate peace of mind. Find the reframe.
Start your reclaim. Hello again, and welcome to another episode of Reframe and Reclaim. I'm Jen Harris.
And I'm Courtney Huckabee.
And today we are going to talk about the sixth step of our 7-step reclaim process, which is the I for inspect.
Yes, this is a very important step. You've done so many steps along the way. This is the gut check. This is, we've got everything back in our space.
Mm-hmm.
How am I feeling? What does it look like? And is it going to function for me?
Yes. And now this is a very quick step, but it's important to really, go with your gut feeling and how is the space feeling, right? Because you planned it, you put it back together. Now, does the space match the intention that you had set for it? Does it match what you had imagined?
Yeah. And I think what's really great about the layout and assemble is kind of like that map. The assemble is the action into it. And it's like, okay, the inspect is, okay, does this need to move to a different shelf? Is this the right organization? Does it feel right for me? And again, we don't want to compare to other people, how their house looks, how their house functions, where they put their things. Really looking at your needs for your home and what this space is for you. Does that really fit where we're at right now?
Right. And I think this is important and can be applied to other places too. But how many times have you purchased, a shirt that you wanted, or like, as soon as I make this career goal, this is all going to work out, or as soon as I accomplish this, X is going to happen, and you get it done. And sometimes you're like, yes, this is exactly what I wanted, needed. And other times you're like, this doesn't feel like how I thought it would. It's a little off.
I know. And a lot of times we've talked about before, like the idea, the plan,
Mm-hmm.
the perspective and picture of the what will be. We've really got to sit in the what is right now. How is this functioning? How does this feel for me? And sometimes the inspect really is kind of that right now it feels great. And then when you start living in it, when you start using it, that's when the maintain, which is our next step, comes in, where we have to maybe shift things around. Because during the assemble, we might say it doesn't quite fit right here, or I think it might need to move, or this might not be the right space to hold this thing. But once we start living in it too, we've got to continue to reevaluate that.
Yes, and give yourself the flexibility and the grace to come back to it. It's not going to be 100% of the time, right? So
yeah, I think when we talk about our book and the different clients we've worked with, the inspector was really important along the way.
Mm-hmm.
We did. I think that one person, we think about the storage shed. We went in and she had an idea of what she wanted, but as we went through and really realized there's a lot more sensitive data, there's some documentations that were very personal and confidential to her. We didn't have the desire to go through them with her, that we thought was more personal. So we had to kind of shift the assembly of that. And then in the inspect is all the stuff you need is lower. You can get to that.
Mm-hmm.
You can assess that at your own pace using the 7 steps on your own. And then having her see how things were labeled and where things were for her relocation was really helpful for her. So in your house, in your practice, I know that one of the things that we've talked about is the inspect. Are there any spaces that you have shifted from how they're used and changed the functionality of that space? And then as you've inspected it, is like, wow, why didn't I come up with this earlier?
Yes. I'll take the example of our formal dining room. So when we first moved in our home, we did not have children, so we had a formal dining room set. And that's where I would do a lot of my seasonal decorating, like my tabletop decor, wall decor, all that kind of stuff would go in that space. Once we had children, though, we didn't need a formal dining space. We weren't entertaining like we normally would, and we really needed a playroom. And so the formal dining got then converted to a
Hmm.
playroom.
Hmm.
Then, as they were kind of growing, this is on like a hardwood floor, and as they were playing, we would have a rug down and things like that. But then we were like, it really would probably work better if they were in my home office space because
Oh
it's
yeah.
carpeted. It has a Murphy bed, so it does get used whenever guests come. But it was a real hassle to move my entire desk up against a wall or shift it around to get the bed down if we had guests. So then we were like, okay, well, this formal dining really needs to shift to my home office, right? And so it's kind of taken on all these iterations as our life and our lifestyle has changed. The other nice thing, when my kids were younger, we wanted them in an open floor plan, open space in the formal dining. Now that they're older and
Yes.
louder and
A little bit more responsible,
a
maybe. They're not
little
going
bit,
to like fall off the couch or
yes, I don't
something.
have to keep my eyes on them. Now they're in a room where the door's shut, right? And the times when I'm working now is really when they're at school, so I don't necessarily have to have doors. The house is pretty quiet if I'm on like a Zoom call or things like that. So that has really helped being flexible and inspecting like how is this really being used and what do I need, and taking that gut check of like, yeah, this really isn't the best playroom, we need to shift that again, has really helped our space flow and work for our family through the different stages and seasons of life. So
Yeah, I think we've done that too, like with my home office, and we have an extra room for guests. We only have one child, so we have an extra space. I was using, during COVID, working from home, my larger room, extra room, and I had like, files stored in there. I had a big desk in there. I had a couch for
mhm,
whenever, my practice manager was meeting with me. And so it was like a little open space and a little bit more space than we needed. However, whenever COVID was lifted, we were back in the office more. That really felt like a wasted space. I wasn't sitting in there, I
mm,
wasn't working in there. And so we actually shifted it so that became our guest room. And then we have a smaller area that has become my husband's home office. He gets a chance to work remotely if needed, but most of the time he's in his office at work. So we are allowed to have guests come over more, and it's a really comfortable space. So we have a bed in there, we have a dresser in there, we have a smaller desk, we have a chair, and then we can use that closet for things that we do for storage and things like that. So that was kind of the gut check too. Is like
mhm,
this is wonderful, this is like working for us, and then it's like feels wasted. So
yes, I had that experience too, like in our front closet. We have a decent sized walk in closet when you first walk into our home for coats, two hanging bars, and some shelves, and just like one shelf up above. And when we first moved in, it's like, okay, coats are going here, hats, gloves, things like that. But we moved to a warmer climate from where we were, and we realized we really don't need all of this hanging bar space. So we actually took out one whole side of bars, consolidated it down, and then now our back stock is right there. And it's right, it's adjacent to our kitchen and our
yeah,
pantry. So it's really easy to go restock things. We also, we're in a tornado area
region.
region
Hmm.
environment, and I had been doing research about disasters from that side, and like your garage doors are like the first thing to go.
They're
They're
very
not as stable,
flimsy. Yeah.
but the garage is where most people store all of their tools. And they were saying whenever a disaster
Oh.
happens, a lot of times people are looking for their tools to fix things, try and get things moving and get things back to normal. And so they had actually suggested like building another like toolbox in case if there's an emergency
That's
where
so
you have
smart.
extra stuff like that. And so we moved it to this closet because it is an interior room.
Hmm.
If we do have a tornado, it's least likely to get hit. And then we have like our lanterns, our extra flashlights, and all of that kind of stuff there. So that space has really been inspected to flip it and accommodate it for what we need.
And that's just more information. You can
Yes.
say, does that fit? I have the tools in the garage. I know we have our tools in the garage, but knowing that it might be a more secure space if
Yes.
needed, and so it's kind of fitting with, if I might need that, or if that's kind of something I need to
Hmm.
reach or access more easily, or I don't need a whole lot of extra closet storage for coats because it's really hot here. I only need a few coats. I think it's really great for that gut check of not what works for, my family in Kansas, what might
Right.
get more snow, or, my family on the beach that they need like storage for their, surfboards and bicycles on the beach, which, hey, I love to come visit.
Right,
But
right.
but if we live in a tornado region, I think knowing where you're at, what your
Hmm.
lifestyle is, whether it's your children, your home office, is that gut check feeling right for your home? And it may just be, how can I rearrange the space? How can I reorganize this? Or
Hmm.
how can I utilize this differently so it fits for my life chapter or my lifestyle?
And I think that how that kind of flowed for us, especially in that closet space, it was a series of inspects and gut checks because originally it was back stock, right?
Hmm.
And then it was like, oh well, this is where we're storing our water. Well, if something happens, this is probably where we should store our lanterns and our other things we would need if we needed this water. So it was creating systems that and sections that made sense. And so it kind of just evolved that way after checking in with myself.
Yeah, I've done that also with my son's closet. When he was younger, we did a lot of storage of boxes and things that we, supplies like diapers and, swim diapers and, sleepers and stuff. And
Hmm.
now that he's more, a little bit more independent, we actually have it categorized differently. And he has a dresser that has like a changing station on top. And I'm like, this is a huge dresser. Changing station we don't use anymore. I don't want to put anything on top of that because he's pretty active and likes to still climb things.
Mm.
So I'm kind of in this phase of, how can I reconfigure his space? And I'm trying to find the gut check. We've already taken a shelf out and put a chair in a different space in his room, but I still kind of sit in there, and I kind of like to go back through the reframe, evaluate,
Hmm.
reflect, assess those things. And I haven't quite found exactly what's going to work in this new stage of his, childhood and what functions for him, but I'm aware that it doesn't quite fit and open to the reframe in that process.
Right. And some of the questions you may want to ask yourself is like, what is the functionality in this
Hmm.
space, right? Is he playing in here? Is he sleeping in here? Is he reading in here? I know he does have a large closet. Do those clothes shift there as he's
Hmm.
getting older? And, you have, I find, at least with my boys, they're a little bit older. As they age up, I devote less space to future clothes.
Right.
I have a little bit more just because I have a younger son who I can pass clothes down to, but especially like with one, once they're through the size, you can go, and then they're wearing them longer. So I think
They
in
are.
your next chapter, you're going to transition to less clothes. So maybe you take out a bar and add more storage underneath, or
That might need to be one of our next
I'm
projects,
down.
honestly, because I've been sitting in there and I'm like, we're using this space, but do we have to use it this way? We
Hmm.
had a drawer in his dresser for diapers, and then a drawer for socks, and a drawer for medicine, and I'm like, that could go in the bathroom closet. That could go
Hmm.
in. Does it really need a whole drawer? And so now we're putting blankets in here. I'm like, well, we already have a linen closet in the hallway, and so I'm kind of
Yeah, we can.
sitting with that and knowing that doesn't feel right now. It did feel very
Hmm.
good and very functional in a previous chapter of his childhood, but also be aware as you're going through the reframe and reclaim, this is a process that's evolving. It's not an everyday process, it's not an every month process, but if it doesn't feel right today, I need to be open to the reframe
Hmm.
again.
And even I know your son has a drawer for his shoes. Maybe a section of
He
that is
does.
socks and
Yes.
shoes
He
together.
has two drawers for shoes.
It's a
Maybe he
lot.
has too many
Maybe he has
shoes.
too many.
And honestly, he wears like three pairs of shoes.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I probably need to go through and see what is too small for him. I went through a phase of, he'd be so cute in this, and this would be great
We
for
all
church.
do.
And then he's like, I don't want to wear that for church. I want to wear these shoes again. Spider Man, Spider Man. And so he wears his Spider Man shoes most days.
But I like how he is also inspecting his wardrobe and coming. He's doing
He
his gut check. He's like, these shoes do not feel right. These are not Spider-Man.
Yes. So I have to be more open and reframing what I want him to wear and what is really being used. And so I'm open to a revamp of that space.
So that's the inspect step of the reclaim process. And so, really, just stepping back and doing that final gut check, asking yourself, does the space now fit what I had imagined and intended? Does it now fit the functionality for my current lifestyle, chapter, and needs? And just, listening to your inner voice and what do what's right for you. So,
Thanks for listening in. If you have any comments, any feedback, we'd love to hear from you. Remember, you can follow, you can like, you can share information. We just want to make sure everybody's getting this information. If you find it useful, let us know. We'd love to hear your story.
Yeah, and if you've had an instance where you know, had that gut check in a space that you've worked on, designed, decluttered, let us know. We'd love to hear your story.
See you later.
Bye.
Thanks so much for listening today. Please like and subscribe and share your comments below if you've enjoyed our episode. We love to hear from our listeners and would love to communicate with you.